Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Good morning and welcome to New York Buddhist Church. Today is Sunday, July 23rd, 2023. We'll begin with quiet sitting. Please sit up straight, gently calm your mind, and follow your breath.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida
Namo
Butsu.
Amida
Namo.
Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Today's chant is Junirai on page 59, Vandana and Tisarana on page 7, our reading Taking Refuge by Thich Nhat Hanh, and our Dharma message today will be delivered via video by Reverend Chiemi Onkora Blai. Our closing gathas Ondokusan and Nembutsu are on page 134 and 135. Namo Amida Butsu.
노부크게도
Koga Cholai Mida
Will everyone please rise for Vandana and Tisarana, if you're able?
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Amen to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham saranam gacchami. Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namu Kiye Butsu. Namu Kiye Butsu. Namu Kiye Ho. Namu Kiye Ho. Namu Kiye So. Namu Kiye So. Namu Amida Butsu.
Namo Buddhas.
Namo.
Namo. Namo Buddhas. Namo Buddhas. Will everyone please be seated? So today's meditative reading is Taking Refuge by Thich Nhat Hanh. Did everyone get a sheet? Nobako-san's giving them out. If you don't have it, okay. Just raise your hand and she'll give you one. All right, let's read together. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha in myself, I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love. Taking refuge in the Dharma in myself, I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation. Taking refuge in the Sangha in myself, I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So it is my great pleasure today to announce that our guest speaker will be Reverend Chiemi Onikura Blai, who is our great Dharma friend from the Twin Cities Sangha in Minneapolis. So please enjoy her talk, which will be in both English and in Japanese.
I'd like to read a passage by Shinran Shoni's writing, Koso Wasan, Hymns of the Pure Land Masters. Please join me in Gasho. The palm together if you can. My eyes being hindered by blind passions, I cannot perceive the light that grasps me. Yet the great compassion without tiring illumines me always. Namanda Butsu. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending New York Buddhist Church Sunday service and logging into this service wherever you are right now. I am Reverend Chiemi Onikura Blai, Assistant Minister at Twin Cities Buddhist Sangha in Minnesota. Thank you for inviting me along giving a Dharma message today. Fortunately, I've had a great long relationships with the New York Buddhist Church since I attended the Eastern District Minister's Assistant Training almost 10 years ago. And also, I have an excellent opportunity to start helping New York Buddhist Church's Howakai, Japanese study group online. So knowing wonderful Jodo Shinshu Sangha, New York Buddhist Church, and then sharing the Shinran Shonin's teaching has been so great for me. Gary Sensei, Isabel Sensei, and Cheryl Sensei, they are my senpai in Japanese, which is a way to call more experienced people with respect. I experienced and deeply understood the Jodo Shinshu tradition. Ondobo, Ondogyo, all followers are Nembut's fellow practitioners. Those on the equal standing all share the same life and all enable life according to the same teaching. So thanks again for allowing me to share the Dharma by Shinran Shonin's guidance today. So last month, a woman contacted our Sangha, Twin Cities Sangha. She mentioned that her father is 94 years old and very ill and won't live very much longer. So the father was born and raised in Japan, and he used to go to temples with his grandmother when he was a child. So he wasn't very conscious anymore. So I don't know the exact sect of the temple he used to go to, but I can't be mistaken for Buddhist. So I don't know what to do before or after my father died. So please help me. So she asked. So I visited him right away. And when I said, hello, konnichiwa, in Japanese, he was surprised and then responded me very well. And then he could speak in Japanese for a while to me. His name was Akio Inoue, He was born and raised in Hiroshima, Japan. He was 16 years old when the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. So Inoue-san was interviewed by local Minnesota newspaper in 2010. So when he was 81 years old. So I want to read the article and share my thought today. Akio Inoue had just walked through the door of the Red Cross hospital when little boy dropped. For decades, the now 81 years old, he wouldn't speak of what he described as catastrophic experience beyond human imagination. As the number of survivors dwindled, he was now compelled to share his first-hand account. He'd spoken in college and high school classrooms at the Peace Day celebration and at the bomb anniversary events. Inoue's grandmother died in an atomic bomb explosion in Hiroshima in Japan. His sister died later of radiation poisoning. Inoue, then 16, was less than a mile from the bomb's epicenter, but survived because he was in one of the few concrete buildings left standing. So he describes himself as a pacifist, but not an activist. He declines to debate whether the atomic bomb was justifiable act of war. He doesn't want to disagreement dissuade anyone from listening to his story, he said. Born in Hiroshima to two storekeepers, Inoue was a worker in an army clothing factory. A year prior to the bombing, his class was forced to quit school to work carry crates of supplies, some which weighed more than 80 pounds, between the warehouses, trucks, and boats. So they worked 8 or more hours per day, every day, except 2 Sundays per month. So after an air raid warning was lifted the morning of the bombing, Inoue got leave from his job to go to the hospital clinic to get care of his sinus problem. He nearly missed the streetcar, but ran after it and hopped on as it headed toward the hospital. He got off the moving car as it passed the hospital instead of waiting for its next stop, broke away. If he had waited for next streetcar or for the car to stop, Inoue figures he would have been on the street when the bomb exploded and almost certainly would have died. When the bomb went off, he just entered the hospital and got into the registration line. I took out my wallet and approached the window. A few seconds later, there was a bright flash behind me, he said. I did not even have a chance to hear the sounds of bomb explosion. The power of the shock wave was amazingly strong and fast, faster than the speed of sounds. So Inoue doesn't remember the next several hours. He apparently was unconscious. When I woke up, it was an entirely different world, he said. Groaning and mourning filled the air. The hospital floor was covered with injured people and the dead. The right side of his face was burned into embedded with many shards of grass. That later he learned he had also fractured his skull. He headed home in search of his family. His father and older brothers were away serving in the military, but his mother, sister, and grandmother were in Hiroshima. When I walked out the building, the entire city was smoldering, he said. There were flames here and there, but not a single green tree. Countless dead bodies with charred faces were littered along the streetcar rails. His home, which was 1 mile west of epicenter, was incinerated. He found his mother and sister nearby. His mother had broken leg, dislocated hip, and other injuries. So his uninjured sister had dragged her out the house before it was engulfed by fire. Several dead bodies were a few feet away. Their bodies had blown up like balloons by the hot summer sun. Inoue recalled their burned skin had peeled off, exposing the flesh which was roasted by the heat and the radiation. Inoue searched for his grandmother until nightfall, but never found her. An army truck arrived the next day and took them to seaport. The next day, Inoue and his sister were taken to Ninoshima Island. On the way, U.S. aircraft fired at their boat. Their mother had been sent aboard a different ship, and Inoue and her sister spent 2 days searching for her. They were reunited at school, which was serving as a shelter in a Hatsukaichi. They lived there for 3 weeks. Inoue watched many of the survivors develop radiation poisoning. Inoue learned to recognize and then symptoms indicates that the death was near. Their hair fell out. They developed a fever. And when they started speaking gibberish, we knew they would be cold and quiet before dawn, he said. He especially remembers a young girl who lost her smile a few days after coming to the shelter. Her cheek lost the strength and the sag like freshly kneaded bread dough that slowly spread on a cookie sheet. Inoue said her mother sat by her side in despair and at her loss, not knowing how to help her. According to the U.S. estimates, some 70,000 Hiroshima residents died in the blast or soon thereafter. By the end of 1945, the death toll had risen 100,000 due to the radioactive fallout and the other after effects. Inoue's sister was one of those later victims. After the family had moved to the relative's farm, Inoue also developed radiation sickness, including fevers and digestive issues. Poor health and survivor's guilt that led to the contemplation of suicide. But I did not have any guts to kill myself, he said. When he was well enough, his father forced him to return to school. So he went to graduate from Hiroshima University and then teach in Tokyo. He followed his first wife to go to Chicago area. They divorced soon after, but he stayed in the U.S. He met Mieko, now his wife, during return trip to Tokyo. While working odd jobs, he studied math and computer programming at the DePaul University and later worked as a computer programmer for various companies. So he retired in 1994. So he returned to the college to earn master's degrees in English literature. So he moved to White Bear Lake, Minnesota in 2005 to near his grandchildren. His scars have long since faded, so too has his memory of some of the details of his ordeal. His wishes he'd shared them sooner, but wasn't psychologically ready, he said. But I can now, he said. Now I feel it's my obligation to share. So Inoue-san's daughter Sue told me that he never said he hated or was angry about the atomic bomb. It doesn't matter who is to blame. Humans are just stupid. A human being's stupidity is all that matters. 16-year-old boy's experience didn't mean he hated anyone. It just made him feel empty that the human beings are stupid. In the New York Buddhist Church Sunday service on June 11th, I heard that the story from Hiroshima-born Eiko Nishida. I was surprised to hear that she was from Mitake Honmachi, where there was a statue of Shinran Shonin in New York City, New York Buddhist Church. So Hiroshima is a city with the most ardent Jodo Shinshu people in Japan. So the bronze statue like that is made. So there are many Jodo Shinshu temples in Hiroshima. So it's Mieko-san stories. It was said that the Buddhism was by her side. So as she was growing up in Hiroshima, so naturally in Japan, and she didn't pay much attention to it. I can imagine that for Inoue-san, the Buddhism has been around since beginning of his childhood, the same, just like Eiko-san. So Inoue-san used to go to Midwest Buddhist Temple when he lived in Chicago in the 1970s. So he taught Japanese classes there. So Jodo Shinshu was always by his side. So the statue of Shinran Shonin at the New York Buddhist Church saw the city of Hiroshima destroyed by nuclear bomb. The statue saw the September 11th attacks in New York. So when I met Inoue-san, I was thinking about that New York Buddhist Church Shinran statue. So Inoue-san saw his hometown Hiroshima was destroyed by atomic bomb and he lost his family and friends. And after he came to the United States, what he saw in this country, in this world, everything he saw throughout his life is all about human stupidity, not knowing the truth and our foolishness. One of the Jodo Shinshu teacher in Japan, Reverend Joen Ashikaga, so Joe Ashikaga Sensei used to say, the Buddha provides us with insight to take notes of things. The Buddha provides us with insight to take notice of things. We humans cannot see the things when there is no light. So in Minnesota, we just had a big storm a few days ago and our house had no power all night. And then we have experienced complete darkness overnight. So we didn't have any lights and coming inside our house at all. So we had some flashlights, but it gave us a minimal view. So our faculty is justifying comes into play to allow us to decide if something is good or bad. Although we may strive as we should raise the level of good. The sad part, it is that all we can do is act according to our own convenience and self-centeredness. So why Inoue-san declined to debate whether the atomic bomb was a justifiable act of the war after such a painful experience? I think he knew very well that humans can only make self-centered decisions. As long as we are unaware of Buddha Dharma's insight, we will never realize that the working of the true hospitable world was already reached us. The Buddha Dharma is working, does not neglect any living things, but enable everything to live. Thus, in Buddha Dharma, light is a manifestation of the Amida Buddha's wisdom. The light of Amida's wisdom is always working constantly with those who feel pain, suffering, and sad, and filling the hearts of those. Buddha not only gives us eyes to see things, but the light of wisdom is always working constantly with those who feel vulnerable and sad and filling the hearts of those who are suffering. So in about a week, it would be 78 years since atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. Many lives are lost and instant on a hot summer day. For decades after that, the suffering of radiation exposure, the pain of losing family members, and various other sufferings have continued. The other day, this year, the G7 summit, the meeting of representatives of the 7 major countries, was held in Hiroshima. So representatives from various countries gathered in Hiroshima went to Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum and experienced the horror of the atomic bomb. This should never happen again, the all countries' representatives said, but did they ever talk specifically about what they need to do? So if we don't realize that each of us is foolishness and stupidity, we will always insist on a judgment and that we are infallible, and a conflict will not disappear. Buddha not only give us eyes to see things, but the lights of wisdom always working, constantly, towards the pure and sad and feeling the hurts of those who are suffering. So please join me in Gasho. My eyes being hindered by brain passions, I cannot perceive the light that grasps me. Yet the great compassion without tiring illumines me always. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much. ただいまより日本語でのお取り次ぎをさせていただきます。はじめに親鸞上人のお示しになられましたご和さん、高僧和さんより拝読をさせていただきます。合唱お願いいたします。煩悩に眼を抑えられて、摂取の光明見ざれども、来非物浮きことなくて、常に我が身を照らすなりと。煩悩に目を遮られて、あらゆるものを収め取るという阿弥陀様の光明を見ることはできないが、その大いなる慈悲は見捨てることなく、すでに私を照らしてくださっている。ナマンダブツナマンダブツ。ナマンダブツナマンダブツ。改めましておはようございます。本日はようこそニューヨーク仏教会のご法座にお参りくださいました。私はミネソタ州のツインシティ仏教会の鬼倉ブライチエミと申します。よろしくお願いいたします。私が住んでいるミネソタはニューヨークから約1000マイル離れていますけれども、このようにオンラインでお取り次ぎをさせていただけることをとてもありがたく思っています。ニューヨーク仏教会の日本語での法話会にご縁をいただくようになり、ニューヨーク仏教会のメンバーの皆様とも親しくさせていただいて、とても嬉しく思っております。先日、私たちの仏教会にある問い合わせがありました。94歳の自分のお父さんが病気で、もうあまり長く生きられない。そのお父さんは日本生まれ、日本育ちで、子供の時におばあちゃんと一緒によくお寺に行っていたと聞いたので、仏教徒には間違いないので、宗派はわかりませんが、亡くなる前に、その亡くなった後に何をしたらよいのかわからないので助けてくださいという連絡がありました。そのお父さんはもうあまり意識がないとおっしゃっていましたが、私がすぐに施設を訪ねました。その時に、こんにちはと日本語で話しかけたら、びっくりされたようで、目をしっかり開けて反応してくださいました。それからは日本語でしばらくお話をすることもできました。その方のお名前は井上昭夫さんとおっしゃいます。広島出身で戦争の後にアメリカに移住して来られました。 私が井上さんに会った時はもうあまりたくさんお話しすることはできませんでしたが、ふるさとの広島についていろいろお話ししてくださいました。井上さんの人生について2010年になりますが、このミネソタのホワイトベアレイクという、町の、新聞に、井上さんの記事が書いてありまして、今日はそれを紹介したいと思います。英語の方はでは、その記事をそのまま読みましたが、日本語ではかいつまんでお話をさせていただきます。1945年、日本時間の8月6日、井上さんは原爆が落ちた場所からわずか1キロぐらいのところで、鼻の病気のためにちょうど診療所に行こうとされていたそうです。井上さんはこの辛い経験を人類の想像を超えた壊滅的な経験とおっしゃって、何十年もお話しすることはできませんでした。しかし、自分が直接体験したことを、同じように体験したことを、証言できる人たちが減ってきている。そんな時に自分こそが話をしなければならないと思われたそうです。80歳ぐらいからアメリカの大学や高校などで、講演をされていました。インタビューではこのように話されています。講演をするという活動について、私は平和を願う平和主義者ですが、社会活動家ではありません。原爆が正当な戦争行為であったかどうかを議論することはしません。意見や考え方が違うことで、私の話に耳を傾けない人が出てくることを望んでいないからです。祖母は行方不明になり、そのまま見つかりませんでした。私の妹も後に放射能の影響で亡くなりました。私は爆心地から1キロも離れていないコンクリートの建物にいたので、生き残ることができました。当時16歳だった井上さんは、1年以上前から学校ではもう授業がなくなり、学徒勤労動員として、陸軍の工場で働いていました。その原爆投下の当日の朝に空襲警報がありました。それが解除された後、私は診療所へ行くために路面電車に乗り遅れそうになって、でも走って追いかけて飛び乗りました。そして診療所のあるところで、その次の停留所を待たずに飛び降りました。もし次の電車を待っていたり、そこで飛び降りなかったら、私は間違いなく死んでいたと思います。私がちょうど病院に入り、列に並んだところでした。財布を取り出そうとしたとき、後ろで明るいピカッと光る閃光がありました。爆発音が聞く前に圧力で私は吹き飛ばされました。その後のことは覚えていません。意識を失って気がついたときは数時間経っていました。目が覚めるとそこは全く違う世界でした。そこはうめき声に満ちていました。病院の床は怪我人と死者で覆われていました。井上さんの顔の右側は焼け焦げて多くのガラスの破片が埋め込まれていました。その後、頭蓋骨も骨折したことが分かったそうです。それでも井上さんは家族を探して家に戻り、そこにいるはずの母親と妹と栗の木は一本もなく、炎があちこちで上がり、路面電車の線路に沿って顔を黒焦げにした無数の死体が散乱していました。自宅は燃えてなくなり、そこに母親と妹を見つけました。母親は足を骨折し、股関節を脱臼していましたが、妹が火に包まれる家から引きずり出していました。外に転がる死体は風船のように膨らんでいました。彼らの焼けた皮膚は剥がれ落ち、熱と放射線で焼けた肉が露出していました。 そのように表現されています。祖母を探したが見つかりませんでした。翌日、陸軍のトラックが到着し、私たちを港へ連れて行き、ボートに乗せられて、美濃島というとこに連れて行かれました。その途中でさえ、アメリカの飛行機がボートに向けて発砲してきました。母だけは別の船に乗せられたので、その後、私と妹は2日間かけて母を探しました。別の避難所で再会し、3週間そこにいました。井上さんは多くの生存者が放射線中毒を発症していくのを目撃しました。16歳の井上さんは死が近いことを示す症状を認識できるようになっていました。髪の毛が抜けたり、熱が出たり、意味不明なことを話し始めたときに、ああ、夜明け前には亡くなるな、と分かったそうです。避難所で会った女の子は、頬は力を失い、クッキングシートの上でゆっくりと広がる練りたてのパン生地のように垂れ下がっていました。その子の母親は、彼女のそばに座っていましたが、絶望し、どうやって彼女を助けていいのかわからず途方に暮れていました。アメリカの推計によれば、原爆またはその直後に約7万人の広島住民が、死亡し、そしてその後1945年の末までに放射能やその他の後遺症によって死者数は約10万人に増加しました。井上さんの妹も、その後になっての犠牲者の一人でした。井上さん一家は親戚の農場に引っ越した後に、井上さん自身も発熱や消化器の疾患などの放射線障害を発症しました。だんだん健康状態が悪くなり、そしてまた生き残ってしまったことへの罪悪感から自殺を考えるようにもなったそうですが、自殺をする勇気はなかったとおっしゃっています。井上さんはその後、広島大学を卒業し、海上自衛隊幹部候補生学校で教鞭を取られました。最初の結婚の奥様を追って、シカゴに来られましたが、すぐに離婚され、日本に戻った時に、美恵子さんと出会い、再婚され、今は2人の娘さんとお孫さんたちに恵まれていらっしゃいました。働きながら大学でプログラミングを学び、プログラマーとして働きました。そして孫たちのいるミネソタに引っ越して来られていました。自分の経験をもっと早く誰かに伝えればよかったんですが、心の準備ができていませんでした。でも今ならできます。それが私の義務だと感じています。とインタビューの最後を締めくくっていらっしゃいます。娘さんのスーさんが話してくれたのですが、井上さんは原爆に対して憎んだり怒ったりすることがあまりなかったようです。あれはみんな人間がバカなんだよとおっしゃっていたそうで、16歳の少年だった井上さんが経験したことは、人を憎むことではなく、人間の愚かさを知り、そして虚しさを覚えたことでした。6月11日のニューヨーク仏教会の日曜礼拝で、広島出身の西田英子さんという方のお話を私は聞かせていただきました。ニューヨーク仏教会にある親鸞上人の像があった、広島の御嶽本町の出身と聞いて驚きました。あのように大きな銅像が作られるくらい、広島は日本で一番浄土真宗が熱心なご門徒が多い町です。浄土真宗のお寺がたくさんあります。英子さんのお話の中に、自然に日本で広島で育っていく中に、いつも仏教がそばにあり、特に意識をすることもなかったと言われていましたが、きっと私がお会いした井上さんも同じように子供の頃から仏教がそばにあったのだと私は想像しています。井上さんご一家はシカゴに引っ越しされた後も、 中西部仏教会、ミッドウェストブディステンポに、通われて、そこで日本語教室の先生もされていたそうです。浄土真宗が常にそばにあったんだと思います。このニューヨーク仏教会には、井上さんのふるさと広島、そして、ニューヨーク仏教会のメンバーの、英子さんのふるさとの御嶽本町から送られた、被爆した親鸞上人の像が立っています。その親鸞上人の像は核爆弾で破壊された広島の町を見ていました。そして9月11日の悲劇をニューヨークでも見ることになったのです。私は井上さんにお会いしたときに、このニューヨーク仏教会の親鸞上人の像のことを思い出しました。このお上人様の像のように、人間の悲劇を井上さんもたくさん見てこられたんだと思います。そして人間の愚かさを感じてこられたんだと思います。足利常円先生とおっしゃる、有名な先生がいらっしゃるんですが、その先生が、仏は物を見る目を与えてくれると申されています。光をなくしては人間は物を見ることができません。それでも理性があるので、物の価値や、良し悪しっていうのを判断を持って自分で考えていきます。そしてその善を良いことを多く行う努力というのをするんですが、悲しいことに、それは全部人間の都合、自分の考えを中心に動くことしかできません。仏法の眼に気がつかなかったら、深く温かい世界の働きがここにすでに至り届いていることにも気がつきません。仏法はすべてのものを見捨てないという生かされている世界に気がついていくことです。阿弥陀様の知恵の光は苦しみ、悲しみ、弱いもの、その弱いものであることすら見ることができない私たちの心にいつも寄り添い働いてくださっています。そのことをお聞かせいただくこと、お弔問させていただいて、念仏の申す日暮らしでありたいと願うことでございます。本日はようこそのお参りでございました。最後にご一緒にお念仏いたしましょう。ナマンダ仏、ナマンダ仏、ナマンダ仏、ナマンダ仏。
Thank you very much, Reverend Chiemi, for your very thoughtful and talk. Certainly gave me a lot to consider. You know, we're passing through our Obon season, where we venerate and commemorate our deceased loved ones. And in 2 weeks, we will have our Hiroshima and Nagasaki memorial service. So my mind immediately is drawn to early words of the Buddha in the Dhammapada, to cease from what is evil, to do what is good, and to cleanse one's mind. These are the teachings of all the Buddhas. And our Shinran Shonin teaches us to have those open minds and hearts. And we hope that others join us on this path to acknowledging and appreciating this one unrepeatable life that we are given, with respect and gratitude for all that the compassion and wisdom which embraces and enables us to live this life. And an odd note, the statue outside was actually consecrated on 9/11/1955. And you know, we really are privileged in our Eastern District to have some wonderful ministers like Reverend Chiemi, who, as she said, helps us with our Hawakai, which is our Japanese language study group. And if you're interested in that and getting a link for that, you can look on our website or speak to Nobuko-san, who's sitting at the piano, who is part of that group and can facilitate giving you a link. If you were not here last week, joining our Eastern District and happily will be the new Jushoku, or resident minister at New York Buddhist Church, will be Reverend Kurt Rai, who served at Placer Buddhist Temple and is now supervising minister for Ekoji. He will also become supervising minister for Seabrook Buddhist Temple and our resident minister. We are so pleased to be welcoming him. He will begin his official ministerial duties in the fall, starting with our September services, and we will have a welcoming party for him. So I hope that you will come to meet him and greet him and welcome him. We're really looking forward to it. So let's see. At this point in our service, we like to welcome any, oh yes, indeed, we didn't do our gathas yet. Thank you very much, Brian. I'm running on ahead. I was so caught up with Reverend Chiemi's wonderful talk. So our gathas today are Andoku-san and Namo Amida Butsu, which are on pages 134 and 135 of your service books. So please stand if you are able for the gathas. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, Nobuko-san. So at this point in our service, we like to welcome any first-time visitors to our temple. Is anyone here for the first time today? If so, please stand and introduce yourself so that we may greet you. Anyone? Any first-time visitors? No, all old-timers. How wonderful. We very much appreciate you spending your Sunday with us. So let's see, let's move on to announcements. So let's see. So next week, we have another special speaker who will be our Reverend Ron Miyamura, who has been our district leader, and he is one of the most senior ministers in BCA and a really good friend to our Eastern District. Wonderful, wonderful minister, and he will be retiring in the fall. So I'm very happy to let you all know that Reverend Todd Suchia, who you've heard speak here, will be taking over, will receive assignment from Bishop to take over the Midwest Buddhist Temple. So as one of our Eastern District temples, hopefully we can welcome both he and Reverend Chiemi Bly and other ministers to New York Buddhist Church. But that will be up to Reverend Kurt Rai, who has requested Reverend Katsuya Kusunoki, who will be our speaker for our Hiroshima and Nagasaki service. Reverend Kusunoki is a Rinban of Seattle Betsuin. He is born in Hiroshima, and he is also a wonderful speaker who will speak in both English and Japanese. So I hope that you will be able to join us for that special service, which should be quite wonderful and also quite poignant. Hiroshima is the sister city of New York, and we have been memorializing the dreadful destruction and, making prayers for peace for many, many years. So do we have any other announcements Reverend Cheryl, any other announcements you can think of? Oh, there will be a board meeting today for those of you attending after the service is over and after the refreshments. So, Yeah. So there will be a board meeting later, so please pay attention to the time so we can start in a timely way. During the summer month, after the Hiroshima-Nagasaki service, we traditionally take a few weeks off, New York Buddhist Church in August. However, some of our online Zoom things will be ongoing. For example, the wonderful Buddha Goes to the Movies will continue in August. You may speak to Brian Doth if you would like to join, and he will send you a link. Yesterday, they discussed The Last Jedi, and I understand it was a wonderful discussion. It's always very interesting to tie these themes back to our Buddhist practice. And it's a very engaging discussion. So if you're interested, please speak to one of us. Meditation will not continue in August? No. So the meditation, we will be taking a break in August, and that will restart in September as well. But you can look at your MailChimp or go to our webpage, newyorkbuddhistchurch.org, to the calendar page, and you'll see any upcoming events or classes. So trying to think if there was something else. So I'd like to thank today our greeter, who was Ruth Funai. The piano today was played by Nobuko Kodama, and our tech team was manned by David Brady and Lily Johnson Sakai. Thank you both. Because of their hard work, we bring the Dharma virtually to you. And the flowers were done by our Ikebana teacher, Junko Yamakawa. And if you are interested in taking Ikebana class, you can look for the flyer and join her bi-weekly, I believe. Bi-weekly or weekly? Weekly classes. So I'd also like to thank my fellow minister assistant, Reverend Cheryl Ikemiya, for chanting with me today. And most of all, I'd like to thank all of you for coming and spending your Sunday at New York Buddhist Church so that we can chant Onenbutsu together with one voice. So please join me in Gassho, and let's have our final Nembutsu. With gratitude for all that underlies the foundation of our lives, may all find the way to peace, happiness, and the understanding that comes when we say Namo Amida Butsu in our tradition. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. Hope to see you all next week.